Okay, now before we get into this video, I want to say that 20 minutes of this video got cut out. I am recording this following an attempted upload in which I received a copyright takedown. Basically, it's blocked worldwide by Disney of all fucking people. So there is a way to watch the video in its entirety. The link on the Rumble channel is literally the first link in the description below. So if you want to see the second portion of the video where we go over essentially an ABC News video regarding Scott Peterson and everything going on there, you're going to have to watch it on Rumble. So if you don't care about that second part and you want to see this video, even though a big 20-minute chunk of it is cut out, you can watch it here. I don't know. Either watch just what we have here if you don't like Rumble, or go to Rumble and see the entire video. It's a 40-minute video. I know here on YouTube it says it's only like 20. But it is what it is, man. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the video. Let's get things to it. I'm thejbgunner. This is Crime Time. 20 years ago, we had a case very, very similar to the Bryan Kohberger IDAHO 4 case. Not in terms of amount of victims, but amount of publicity, circumstantial evidence that led to the conviction of a man that could potentially be innocent. Well, the California Innocence Project has actually came to the aid of Scott Peterson, who was that man that was convicted of the murder of Lacey Peterson and his unborn child. How are they connected? We'll talk about that here today. I'm thejbgunner. This is Crime Time. Let's get it.
Bring it back.
Well, what's going on, everybody? As you guys know, I'm thejbgunner, and this is Crime Time. Now, before we get started, I want to say first and foremost, thank you to all the people that support the channel. Big shout out to the Gun Squad. Regardless of the method you choose and regardless of which channel you support, I couldn't do it each and every day as often as I do without you, the Gun Squad. Love you guys. Thank you so much. And if you too find my content valuable, feel free to hit the links down below. Join the Gun Squad. Support the channel today. With all that being said, let's jump into this story. By the way, while you're down there, you can also check out my other content. If you're not a snowflake, you can watch the political stuff. If you are, you may want to watch the gaming channel or the live stream channel. Actually, probably not even that. You keep your monkey ass right here. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this video, because what I want to talk about is 20 years ago and the dangers that we have with the internet and publicity, the media, because I currently believe that there's not enough evidence to convict Bryan Kohberger in the murders of the IDAHO 4. However, all the evidence they have is circumstantial, and we've seen people get convicted and sentenced to death even for circumstantial cases in the past. And that is why I believe, despite the fact there's not enough evidence to convince me that Bryan Kohberger did it without a reasonable doubt, at least so far right now. We haven't obviously seen trial. We don't know anything about it in terms of what, if anything, they're going to bring to the trial that we haven't already seen. But if you go back 20 years, there was another person much like Bryan Kohberger, and that was the case of Scott Peterson. By all accounts, Scott Peterson's only real flaw was that he was a cheater and a liar. That in itself, though, was the very thing that was used to drum up an army of society that was against Bryan Kohberger, because everybody, let's just call it what it is, hates a liar and a cheater. It is what it is. But a liar and a cheater does not mean a killer. I want to get into this because the Scott Peterson case is back in the limelight, but I want to connect the dots and show you how just because Bryan Kohberger doesn't have any concrete evidence against him doesn't mean that the court of public opinion and ultimately in the end the actual court itself may not find him innocent. So it's not as if the court system is completely unflawed. And so it is very possible that all the people that believe Bryan Kohberger did it, believe it based on media reports for the same reason they believe Scott Peterson did it. If you listen to the negative things that's been said about Kohberger, they call him an incel. They basically attack the core of who he is without even knowing who the fuck he is. In a lot of ways, that happened with Scott Peterson simply because he lied to his wife, he lied to his mistress, he lied to these people, and so automatically it painted him as a liar, and the court of public opinion turned against him thanks to the outrageous media coverage. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to, before we get into the major parts of this story or of this video, I want to take you down a timeline of Scott Peterson and the alleged case, okay? November 2004, Scott Peterson was convicted of murdering his wife. So this is about 20 years ago, Lacey, and their unborn son, Connor. Prosecutors alleged that Peterson's motive for the murders was to escape married life and upcoming fatherhood. His death sentence was overturned in 2020, and he is now serving a life sentence without parole. Let's go ahead and get to the timeline of what happened here. And I want you to be able to connect the dots, and then I'm going to show you a little bit about what's going to happen in the future and how that also connects to Bryan Kohberger. And yes, they can send a man to the death penalty without having any tangible, real evidence. But I'm going to show you how the jury and how the prosecution, they didn't take seriously exculpatory evidence, and instead sent Scott Peterson to death penalty. Listen, I know there's plenty of people here that's going to say Scott Peterson did this. There are plenty of people here that's going to say Scott Peterson was a guilty man. And I have to ask you why. What makes you think that? Because when it comes to Scott Peterson, it is well understood, it is well documented that there was no physical evidence tying him to this. The motive was completely dreamed up in the media, much like the motive right now with Bryan Kohberger being an incel is also dreamed up in the media. So let's go ahead and get to this. Let's go do this and let's see what we got. All right, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. December 24, 2002. Lacey Peterson is reported missing from the Peterson's home in Modesto, California. Now, let me explain to you guys something in regards to this. There was multiple eyewitnesses that saw Lacey Peterson walking her dog after Scott Peterson left for a fishing trip. There are multiple people that said they saw her walking the dog. There was a break-in across the street, literally, a home invasion across the street. And the dog was found by a neighbor running around the streets with his leash on. Now, I know a lot of you guys might say, well, hey, Scott Peterson probably set it up that way. That's just you guessing. That's no different than the tunnels under the Kohberger, under the IDAHO 4 residence. It's all just made up bullshit by people like you. But let's get back to this. Let's see. January 24th, 2003, Amber Fry, a Fresno massage therapist, comes forward at the police news conference and says she was having an affair with Scott Peterson. She says the affair began November 20th after Peterson told her he was single. Now, why does this matter? Why does this matter? Because just like any other situation, I don't know if you guys have ever been involved in cheating or an affair or anything like this. A lot of times what one person will do will completely lie about the existence of a significant other, or say he's in the middle of a divorce, or say he was widowed. And the women do it too. The women cheaters do it too. At the end of the day, Amber Fry was an upset woman when she found out Scott Peterson was essentially cheating on her as well and lying to her as well. So she has full motive to come out here and bash Scott Peterson and lie about Scott Peterson because she's the scorned woman, just much like the wife would be, okay? April 18, 2003, California Attorney Bill Lockyer confirms a body was found on April 13th on the shore of the San Francisco Bay. Is Connor, and another body on April 14th is Lacey. Now, it was unborn. I was curious, did she just shit out the baby while she drowned? I don't know. I guess anything's possible. April 18, 2003. This case is 20 years old. It's been a long time. Peterson is arrested in San Diego, pending capital murder, double homicide charges, and is held without bail. April 21st, 2003. At his arraignment, Peterson is charged with 2 felony counts of murder with premeditation and special circumstances. Peterson pleads not guilty. Mark Garagos becomes Peterson's attorney. You see Mark Garagos a lot on News Nation. A gag order is placed on the participants, sound familiar, saying the restrictions are necessary to preserve Peterson's right to a fair trial amid massive publicity. Doesn't that seem like the exact same thing they tell you now in regards to Bryan Kohberger? This is to secure a fair trial. Meanwhile, the media just runs and rants and raves with any story or any leak that they possibly can get. You ever notice that none of the leaks are in the favor of Bryan Kohberger or Scott Peterson? But despite the gag order, the media is free to... Let me explain something. The only way a gag order could actually work is if you restrict the media from being able to say anything about the case. In my opinion, that's the only way possible, is if you have a court order saying the media, if they say anything about this case, there's going to be... there's going to be, restrictions filed against them or any kind of, injunctions. At the end of the day, when you put a gag order, you put a gag order on the people that actually know the truth and are able to speak on their truth. But you give the media free rein to dog and make up whatever the fuck they want. So all this time there was a gag order, the media was hitting Scott Peterson, calling him a liar and a cheater, blah, blah, blah. And they were free to do that, much like the media does to Bryan Kohberger right here, right now. I am of the sound mind that I do not believe that the gag orders helps the fairness of the trial or helps the defendant at all. Let's see here, because ultimately, if anything leaks from the defense, you know exactly who it was. If anything leaks from the prosecution, you kind of have no clue, because it could be a cop, it could be any member of the legal team, could be the judge, could be the prosecutor, could be the aides for the prosecutor, could be anybody, could be court clerks, could be anybody. Okay, let's go. August 18th, Judge Al Girolami rules the news cameras will not be allowed in the courtroom at the preliminary hearing. You don't say. You don't say. September 26th, Lacey's family files a civil suit against Peterson to prevent him from receiving money for selling the story. So now we're in a situation where we already got people filing lawsuits against him as if he's the guilty party. Lacey's mother, Sharon Roca, sues Peterson for over $5 million. Remember, these are all the things that the audience, that the public are going to see. They're going to see his mother suing him for $5 million, or her mother suing him for $5 million for the deaths of the daughter and the grandson. As the executor of Lacey's estate, Roca files two separate lawsuits, a wrongful death action and a survival action. January 2004, the criminal trial is moved to San Mateo County. February 2nd, Judge Alfred DeLucci bars cameras from the courtroom for the entire trial. Gag order, no cameras, media still leaking, the parents of the victims out suing him, shit like that. But Scott Peterson and his team can say absolutely nothing. March 4th, 2004, the jury selection begins. The 6-woman jury is seated May 27, 2004. There's also 6 alternatives. And let me explain this to you. When you have 6 women on that case, and I'm going to tell you, women always play the victim. Women always claim to have been cheated on. Women always claim to have been raped. Women always claim to have been abused. Every single bitch you ever meet in your entire life, they have one of those stories. I swear to God, if you bump into a woman that says she's never been abused, never been raped, never been cheated on, I promise to God you've met a unicorn. They all have been a victim at some point in one relationship or another. Every breakup in a bitch's relationships, every bitch breakup in her entire life has always been the man's fault. Ask them, they'll tell you. Ask them. Show me one bitch that's ever said, hey, I was at fault. No, they never have, and everyone oddly believes them. But anyways, believe all women, right? Anyway, whatever. So, DeLucci tells the trial begins on June 1st. DeLucci tells jurors, so by what I was saying is 6 women on the jury, he's fucked. DeLucci tells jurors they must take care to ensure their actions in and around the courtroom are not misconstrued. Now, pay attention. The warning comes after juror number 5 spoke to Lacey's brother, Brent Roca, at a courthouse security checkpoint on June 18th. What do you know? Juror number 5, June 23rd, Justin Falconer, is dismissed from the jury. So we already got jury misconduct, shit like this. August 10th, 2004, Amber Fry testifies that Peter told her he was a widower and lied about where he lived and where he traveled. That's normal shit from cheaters. That's how you cheat, is you lie about having a significant other. Jurors hear recordings of Peterson and Fry's conversations made by the public after she discovered the truth. And look, there's several reasons why that was. Scott Peterson was at the wake of his wife. Amber Fry called and he said he was in France or some shit like that. He can't say I'm at the wake of the fucking wife. Or whatever the situation was. That's the thing about cheating. It's betrayal. It requires lying. That's the way it works. It doesn't mean that you're out killing people just because you're getting some strange pieces of pussy. It's not what it means. It's just, there's a lot of people that cheat. More people cheat than don't cheat. Anyways, November 3rd, 2004, jury deliberations begin. By the way, I want you to see this. The trial begins in June of 2004. Remember, he was arrested in April of 2018. So for all of you people saying murder trials take years and years and years, no. This thing took a year and a half. And this was a long trial. This was a long trial. And actually the trial wasn't that long. June 1st is when the trial began. June, July, August, September, October, and November. So it was 4 months on trial, and then the jury began to deliberate. November 12th, Peterson is found guilty of first-degree murder for Lacey's death and second-degree murder for Connor's death, which makes no sense to me. If he planned to murder her, then he planned to murder both. December 13, 2004, this is a month later, the jury recommends that Scott Peterson be sentenced to death. March 16th, this is 4 months later, Gelucci follows the recommendation and sentences Peterson to death. October 21st, this is later that year, a judge rules that proceeds from $250,000 life insurance policy Peterson took out on Lacey will go to Lacey's mother. April 2009, Lacey's parents dropped their wrongful death lawsuit against Scott Peterson. Ain't that odd? Ain't that odd how they dropped the wrongful death lawsuit? Why would that be? March 13th, 2019, this is 10 years later, Governor Gavin Newsom signs an executive order. This is 10 years with him on death row. Issue a moratorium on executions of death row inmates in California prisons, including Scott Peterson. So Scott Peterson escapes the death penalty. October 14th, 2020, the California Supreme Court orders the San Mateo County Supervisor Court to re-examine Scott Peterson's murder convictions because a juror did not disclose involvement in other legal proceedings. Another juritorial misconduct, including but not limited to being the victim of a crime. Right. I bet it was a woman who said she was a victim of rape or cheating or abuse. They beat me. Yes, we get it, victims. Perpetual victims, men are bad. We get it. All we want to do is rape and beat you up. We get it. Same story told by every bitch since the beginning of time. Let's go. Peterson is resentenced to life without the possibility of parole by Judge Ann Christine Masulo. October 2022, Peterson is moved from death row at San Quentin near San Francisco to Mule Creek State Prison in Lone, California. April 2023, Peterson's attorneys file a petition for a writ of habeas corpus in which they allege violations of state and federal constitutional rights and state statutory rights, including a claim of actual innocence that is supported by newly discovered evidence. That was in April of last year. They have new evidence. Here we are, a year later. January 2024, the Los Angeles Innocence Project says it has begun representing Scott Peterson. The nonprofit says it's investigating Peterson's claim of actual innocence. And there is indeed an update. And the mainstream media is even starting to report on that, which I think is fucking awesome. Because what we're going to talk about now is he the wrong man? And I want you to still listen and realize that you're going to see connections in regards to Bryan Kohberger throughout this entire thing. Here we go. That would be beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a good video. Whether you believe Scott Peterson did or did not murder his wife, I think we all can agree there was no evidence that he murdered his wife. They completely overlooked witnesses that had exculpatory evidence by saying that they saw Laci Peterson out with the dog way after Scott Peterson left. Scott Peterson left his house at 10 a.m. that morning. And Laci Peterson was seen walking the dogs after that. And it was confirmed, essentially, because the dog was found by a neighbor running around with his leash on. And then returned to Scott Peterson's backyard. In my opinion, including the jury mishaps, the Scott Peterson case is complete shit, but it is an example of how a man could even be sentenced to death based on public opinion. I was alive 20 years ago, obviously, and a grown-ass man to witness this trial, to witness the media hype around Scott Peterson. And I'm witnessing it exactly the same way with Bryan Kohberger. So despite the fact that Kohberger's entire case is based essentially on circumstantial evidence, I fear that they'll find Bryan Kohberger guilty, just like they did Scott Peterson. I'm thejbgunner. This is Crime Time. If you guys like what I do here and you find my content valuable, feel free to hit the links down below. Support the channel. Let me know in the comments section, do you see the connections? Fucked up days. Maybe he did it. Maybe Peterson did it. I'm still confused about why that evidence was overlooked. See y'all tomorrow.